Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. Does the Pokemon playtest scam card controversy affect us over here at Final Trade? The people who I have on my channel and my patrons and the rest of us. I got this question recently, and the answer is really no. But what are the odds that it actually has zero effect on us? The more nuanced answer is very, very slightly negative or very, very slightly positive. And I'll lay out both of those scenarios. Now, anyone who's been around the TCG world for any amount of time in Pokemon knows that the entire secondary market for Pokemon is a shattered hellscape of counterfeits, scams, repacks, all kinds of scum and villainy. So you have to understand that you need to know the supply chain that you're getting your product through. Everybody's already pretty cautious about things unless they just really want to get taken advantage of. So people are already aware that the Pokemon secondary market is a good place to get ripped off. So a big giant scam involving millions of dollars of fake playtest cards, I don't want to say it's par for the course because the size of this scam is much bigger than what we're used to seeing in the Pokemon market. But the kind of people who are buying those sketch cards are probably not close to the kind of people who are buying the sealed boxes that we're putting back in our closets here. Now, there will be some minor overlap, and when you inject money into one of these games networks or you extract money from it, it does kind of reverberate around across the whole rest of the network, because you can imagine there's always somebody who wants the playtest cards, and also maybe they're interested in anything from the first 5 years of Pokemon. And then there might be people who are interested in, say, years 3 through 8 of Pokemon. That's when they played as a kid, and so they like collecting that stuff. And on and on. And so we can see that when some money gets pushed in or out of the market as a response to this scam, it can travel up and down the market, all around the network. And so, to the extent that people may look at this and say, you know what, Pokemon is just too dangerous, there's too many scams, this is the scam that broke the scammels back, well, maybe they take their money out and they go and they find another hobby. And so that is very, very, very slightly detrimental to us. Now, if this was an investment channel that focused on the first couple years of Pokemon cards, yeah, it would be a big deal for us. Okay. But it's not. We're mostly buying modern Pokemon boxes, putting them back into our closets, and then reaping the giant gains on them in the future. So it's unlikely to have a strong crossover that will affect us if the response of people is to go find other hobbies. That by and large, there will be less money in the Pokemon secondary market network in the future, and so less will be available to flow into my pockets and your pockets. Now, there's another, I think, less likely scenario where it's slightly beneficial for us. Let's say that CGC makes people whole, or CGC fails and goes into bankruptcy, and creditors are potentially made partially whole by that. And let's say that the outcome of all of this is that somehow people now have better confidence in the market, that say things are done right, more protections are put into place, and somehow this is beneficial in the long run, and that allows people to feel more safe in the market, and they inject more money into it in the long run. And again, I think this is the less likely scenario, but there's a small possibility of it. And if more money gets injected into the market in the long run because people feel more confident in there being fewer scams, maybe more people are aware of them, you get more people like Rattle Pokemon who go chasing down the scams and the scammers, and maybe you get law enforcement more focused, and you have a crackdown on some of the worst scammers and the habitual scammers, then potentially, if people feel more confident, more money will flow into the Pokemon secondary market network, and that would benefit us. But again, it would only benefit us to a tiny degree. So I think overall, this is short-term noise in terms of what we do here on Final Trade, in terms of what most of my audience is doing, in terms of what my patrons are doing, buying boxes and putting them back in the closet for the long term. This really doesn't affect us much, if any at all. And for the most part, you can ignore it. It is interesting. It is interesting that a guy who was potentially involved in the early development of the Pokemon game appears to have been involved in the scam. Maybe it'll turn out he wasn't, but it appears that maybe he was. And, it's an interesting turnaround of things. So we'll see how it plays out. Certainly been interesting to watch, but I don't really think it affects us here. And certainly not to any extent that we need to stop and think about how we might change and do things differently here. I definitely don't think that's in the cards based on what's happening with the fallout from the playtest card scam over in the Pokemon world. Let me know what you think, guys. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.